Hello learners, today we'll be covering Unit 1, Chapter 1, Nature of Psychology and Socio-Cultural Processes of Behavior. This is from Block 1 of General Psychology BPCG 171 of Bachelor of Arts first year from Indira Gandhi National Open University. Okay, so let's start. Structure. This is basically what we'll be covering in this chapter. Its introduction, the objectives of the chapter, psychology, its origin and evolution, then definition of psychology, the scientific nature of psychology, characteristics of science, and so on. So, introduction. Let's move on with the introduction first. Psychology is concerned with almost all aspects of our life. That is why everyone is interested to know more about psychology. But there are many misconceptions about psychology too. Many people think that psychology deals with treating mad people. Some others feel that psychologists can read your mind just by looking at you or your face or forehead. They tend to equate psychologists with astrologers, gemologists, numerologists, palmists, or graphologists who claim to solve your problems of life and predict your future. So basically, what is being said till here now is that psychology is concerned with all aspects. Means psychology is related to every aspect of your life, be it adolescence, childhood, adulthood, or whatever. That is why everyone is interested. So everyone is basically somewhat interested about psychology, and if they don't even know whether they're being interested in psychology directly or not, they actually are, though they don't even realize it. Like psychology can be interested, like some person is interested in knowing how they will get fat or how they will get slim. And they get worried about this a lot, so they may try to seek precautions about not worrying about these kind of stuff a lot, or trying to keep the stress levels down. So this all comes into psychology. But moving on, there are many misconceptions about psychology. So the writer is saying that there have been many misconceptions about psychology. I mean, people believe psychology to be something else, or believe something else to be a part of psychology too. So this is not like it. Like many people think that psychology deals with treating mad people. That is actually to some form right. Psychology does treat mad people, but it doesn't do only that. Most people believe that it is only concerned with treating mad people, but that's not the only scope of psychology. And some others feel that the part where I talked about, that some people take things that are not related to psychology to be related to it. This is about that some others feel that psychologists can read your mind just by looking at you or your face or forehead. This is, however, somewhat true, because psychologists, a very experienced psychologist, would probably recognize your thoughts, your inner feelings from your face, from the kind of expressions that you might make. They tend to equate psychologists with astrologers, gemologists, numerologists, palmists, or graphologists. And most people think that the astrologers that you meet on somewhere like some high class astrologers, like somewhere you can find on TV or YouTube, they are also psychologists, but this is not right. And the palmists, they are not psychologists. And psychology cannot predict your future. Although, if taken very dramatically, psychology can predict your future to some extent. Okay, so you might have heard the term psychology, psychological, mental, etc. But what do you know? What is the meaning of psychology and how did it evolve? Is psychology a science or art? How our brain structures affect our behavior? What is the role of perception, attention, learning, motivation, and emotions in shaping our behavior? So we will find an answer to all these questions in this unit. These are the objectives. After finishing this unit, they said that we will be able to understand the origin and nature of psychology. After that, we will also be able to articulate the scientific nature of psychology. What is the exact scientific nature of psychology? Then we will also be able to know the scope and applications of psychology, understand different methods to study psychology, and understand the role of socio-cultural processes underlying human behavior. Means what social cultural processes give rise to certain human behaviors. Psychology, its origin and evolution. Psychology, how it began and how it evolved into what we know, of it as now. So the origin of psychology can be dated back to 1870s. The term psychology is derived from two Greek words as always, psyche and logos, where psyche means soul or breath and logos means knowledge or study. So it can be called as knowledge of the soul or study of the knowledge, study of the soul, or knowledge of the breath or study of the breath. The word psychology was not in common use before the 19th century, and the field of psychology did not actually become an independent science until the middle of the 19th century. So, until the middle of the 19th century, there was not a separate branch for psychology, it was kind of a mixed branch. Psychology emerged as an independent academic discipline in 1879. So it became an independent academic discipline in 1879 when a German professor, Wilhelm Wundt, you can also call him W. Wundt. So D can become a little bit of silent here. Wundt established the first psychology laboratory at the University of Leipzig. So he established the first psychology laboratory at the University of Leipzig in Germany. According to Bolles might have been another psychologist. Wundt was a medical doctor by training. He was a medical doctor, and early in his career, he was fortunate to work with some of the great physiologists of the 19th century. Fittingly, his laboratory was established during the time he spent as a professor of philosophy. So, his laboratory was established when he was a professor of philosophy. So, he established a branch of an independent academic discipline of psychology while he was studying philosophy and teaching it. That's why psychology is always concerned and related with philosophy in some matter or other. It is important to note that the intellectual roots of psychology lie at the union of philosophy and physiology. So here they are saying that psychology lies somewhere in philosophy and physiology. Wundt is traditionally recognized as the founder or father of modern psychology, and 1879 is seen as the year in which the psychology finally emerged as a unique field. So before Wundt, that is prior to Wundt, it was not possible to major in psychology. That means it was not possible to get a degree in psychology because there were no official psychologists or psychology departments. Wundt started studying the structure of mind, which meant the immediate conscious experience. So there are actually many different facets of studying psychology. Wundt was particularly studying more the conscious. Conscious means immediate, like the processing of this life, the experience of this life right now, what we are living, what we are doing, what we are thinking. It's about the immediate experience. It's not about what might happen, what we will go on to do in the future, what we might have done in the past, and how it relates to us, how it is affecting us till now. He was relating about right now. How is the immediately the conscious experience? How is it? How does it work? How is that experience? He isn't concerned about the divine or what will happen after death or something like that sort. He's concerned about now. Now, what is this life? What are we doing in this life? Why are we living? How do we live it? So that's what basically made psychology. And this is what also differentiated psychology from philosophy. Because psychology studies the conscious of immediate experience, immediate. Whereas philosophy is concerned with the past and future also. The contents and process of subjective experience such as sensations, thoughts, feelings and emotions, like what are we feeling right now, what are we thinking right now, what is happening to us right now, what's going on in our brain right now. It's about now. Thus, formally psychology was recognized as an independent science in 1879. Let us now look at how psychology has been defined. Now let us look how it was defined. So psychology has been defined in a number of ways by various authors. So psychology is actually a very vague science. No one is actually sure about what it deals with, what it does, and how to define it. So there has been literally hundreds of explanations about it by different psychologists of their times. But we will have a basic idea about what they say psychology is. Psychologists had been debating on whether psychology should focus on mind, consciousness, or behavior. So mind, consciousness, and behavior are three very different things. mind, like your mind would be telling you that you should study, but somewhere you would be thinking, let's play games or let's go outside and have some fun. Whereas there would be a third thing, that would be your consciousness. Your consciousness would be looking at both of them, and it would be just like a spectator looking at a fight between the mind and the and what do we, I don't know what do we say to man. So it would be like a kind of fight between what you want and what you should do, and the spectator would be nothing but your consciousness. And thirdly is your behavior, like what you ultimately choose to do, and what you ultimately choose to do is decided, I think, by your consciousness. So let us look at how the definitions of psychology have come a long way over the past 130 years. Earlier, psychology was part of philosophy, as we have already read. Ancient philosophers were interested in the study of the soul. Thus, it was first defined in terms of the science of soul. However, since the term soul has a very wide and comprehensive meanings, it was considered as a vague term and was criticized severely in the Middle Ages. So no one has been able to actually pinpoint what soul exactly is. So soul is a very vague term, and it has a different definitions, a lot of different meanings, and it means very different for every other person. So it's not the same, the soul is not the same for me as it is for you, or it may not be the same for a third person. That's why but for a science we need a proper definition, need a proper conception about what this thing deals with. So psychology was later removed from terming the science of soul. But now this is not the case. Some of the famous definitions of psychology have come up or are as follows. Psychology is the science of human and animal behavior. It includes the application of this science to human problems. Morgan in 1986. The scientific study of behavior and mental processes. The scientific study of behavior and mental processes and how they are affected by an organism's physical state, mental state, and external environment. After this, psychology is all about human behavior, about mental processes, and about the context in which behavior and mental processes occur. The science of behavior and mental processes. The science of behavior and cognitive processes. Scientific study of behavior and mind. A science in which behavior and other evidence is used to understand the internal processes leading people and members of other species to behave as they do. So basically, psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes of human beings and animals. Here, self-assessment questions. Psychology is all about human behavior, about mental processes, and about the context in which behavior and mental processes occur. Here, this could be true and this could also be false. It is true because all the things said here is right, but they have missed one point. It's not only about human behavior; it's also about animal behavior. Is all about is no not all about, but it is about, it is more than this, but it is also about these all things. So here you can choose it accordingly. It could be true or it can also be false. Most likely I think you should go with true. Psychology is the science of human behavior. Only false, definitely false, as we have already read. It's not about only human behavior but about mental processes and about the context in which behavior and mental processes occur. Context means the backdrop as to why the certain behavior and mental processes happened. What was the backdrop of it? What was the situation that made such a situation happen? Psychologists are like astrologers, gemologists, numerologists, palmists, or graphologists who can predict your future. We have already read it. It's false. Earlier, psychology was part of philosophy. This is true. Wundt is recognized as the father of the modern psychology. True again. So moving on, now let us study the scientific nature of psychology. Now let us define psychology in terms of a science. So contemporary psychologists, that contemporary means of now or of the present times. So the psychologists of present times have always defined psychology as a science of behavior. A science of behavior as to why certain animals, certain human behave as the way they do. But is it a science like physics, chemistry, biology, and zoology, or something different? So this would be very interesting to know if psychology can be considered a science like physics, chemistry, and biology are considered. In this section, we will look at some of the definitions of science. We will also discuss the nature and characteristics of science and try to understand psychology as a science. So let us look at the following definition. So first, let us see what a science is. Science is a systemized body of knowledge gathered through carefully observing and measuring events. So science is nothing but a systemized body, means a body of knowledge. It means a lot of knowledge gathered in a particular systematic way, where everything is lined up in a systematic way, and the knowledge has been gathered through observing and measuring events, measuring certain situations or events or happenings. Science is approach to knowledge based on systematic observation. So Lehe defined science as an approach towards knowledge. Knowledge is very different from information. Actually, we will also need to define knowledge, but we'll talk about it later. So science is an approach to knowledge which is based on systematic observation. It's not like we had an idea, like we saw a situation and we formed an hypothesis or an idea about this might be the reason behind it, or this could be that, or this could be like it's mostly called rumors. Like some people, two people are fighting, and you saw them fighting, and you just form some conclusions on your own that they are fighting because of that girl, or they are fighting because of that guy, or they are fighting because he wanted to just vent his anger out on him, and so on and so on. Science is not like hypotheses. Science is based on systematic observation. Like we have to know the exact reason why it happened the way it did, and how are the things that related, how are different things related to what happened. So this is a systematic observation or approach. This is systematic approach. The sole aim of science is to classify, understand, and unify the objects and phenomena of the material world. The material world, that is the world we are living in the present world. So the sole aim of science is to classify. It means classify what these things are, understand how they work, why they work the way they do, and unify them, and unify how they are interrelated, how they are related to each other, and phenomena, and the things that happen around the world, the natural occurrences that happen in the world, in this world, the material world, by using a combination of accurate observations. So accurate observations, we take a lot of accurate observations, as we do in physics, we do in chemistry, we also do it in biology. So we have to make accurate observation as to let's suppose that lightning happened somewhere. So the scientist would have to make accurate observations as to what was the pattern of the lightning, how strong was the light that emanated from it, where did the lightning occur, what was the surrounding of before the lightning, were there clouds, were they of dark color, something like that. So these are the accurate observations. And experimentation, then he will try to form lightning on his own using two rocks, maybe something similar to to the situation that was before the lightning occurred. So he would do experiment on a small scale. Then logic and intuition obviously play a very important role. Logic as to why the clouds made the thunder, why the clouds made lightning occur, what was the reason behind it, that's logic. So without logic, the scientist definitely wouldn't be able to start his experiment, let alone finishing it. And intuition, obviously intuition there is, because our mind keeps on telling us the next step somewhat in advance. It has a vague idea about what the next steps could be. So scientists seek to understand the rules that govern all levels of the natural universe. We will now describe the characteristics of science. So now let us finish this chapter fast. Characteristics of science. The observation of events are systemized in various ways, but mainly by classifying and establishing general principles and laws to describe and predict new events as accurately as possible. Psychology studies behavior in the same way like the other sciences study their subject matter, and therefore shares a number of features with them. In common with other sciences, psychology as a science has the following characteristics as described by Morgan et al. So psychology is similar to other sciences in these four ways. That is empirical observation, systematic approach in theory, measurement, and definition of terms. Let us first study about this. It's empirical observation. So psychology as a science is first of all an empirical process. So what is an empirical process? Empirical process means it is defined by experiments and or accurate observations. It is not any hypothesis or not a situation that we have just thought in our mind. It's not a thought out situation which is not based on any concrete evidence. It is based on complete concrete evidence that are shown by experimentations and observations. So here it goes, that is to say, it rests on experiment and observation rather than on argument, opinion, or belief. So suppose you say that a kid is behaving particularly in a strange or in an aggressive or angry manner. So you can form an hypothesis. Yeah, let's say he always behaves in such a manner. So you can form an hypothesis or your own belief that he is just like this, or he is just a bad guy, or maybe he just don't like people. But a psychologist would try to experiment upon the child, not like open him up and that try to understand how he's made up. He's like to experiment with his social surroundings. So he'll try to see and seek that why the child is behaving why the way he is behaving. He'll try to see how his parents behave with him, how his surroundings are, what are his wishes and are they not getting fulfilled, what are the accurate and exact reasons behind his behavior, rather than forming a belief of him that he is doing this because of this and this. So, systematic approach and theory. Data from observation and experiments are essential to science, but for them to make some sense in helping us to understand events, they must be ordered in some way. So, you cannot just write down things in a very measly manner. So, suppose I have to write a few things. Suppose I have to write the counting of 1 to 10. So, I write here 1, then here 2, then I write here 3, then here 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So this is not at all right. Okay, I wouldn't be able to make anything out of this, why these numbers are written, whether it is meaningless or meaningful. So I would either write like this: 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on, or like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So these patterns actually form a kind of systematic manner, so they can help understand that yeah, he's actually writing a counting from 1 to 10, or he's actually writing counting from 1 to 7. This is a systemized manner. It helps us to understand and make sense of things. See, here it is written to make some sense, exactly the same words. So like scientist, a psychologist also tries to find out of principles to summarize the data economically. Therefore, the theories and organization of data in psychological research is systematic. Here they have written in here. It's mistaken. It should be is here. So, anyways, let's move on. Measurement is also very important, because measurement gives us an exact idea and very accurate information about the thing. So another distinguishing feature of many sciences is measurement, which refers to assignment of numbers, giving of numbers to objects or events according to some certain rules. So physics is ranked highest, that is most scientific in terms of measurement among the sciences, as it has developed the most precise measurement. So physics, as you all know, has the most precise measurement because it is more closely related with maths, and maths is obviously the science of measurements. Like other sciences, psychology also involves measurement and definition of terms. So clearly every scientific study, every scientific discipline requires its own definitions and terms. So careful definition of terms is essential to clear thinking in science. The procedure in psychology is to define concepts by relating them to observable behavior. So how do we define terms in psychology? We define terms in psychology by relating them with observable behavior. For suppose I want to define anger is a term in psychology and want to define anger. So I would define it with some kind of behavior, like in anger people tend to shout. Okay, people tend to beat someone, may criticize or hurt someone's feelings. So this is and I've related all these behavior to this particular term anger. So I can define anger in terms of that anger is defined when people tend to shout or beat someone or criticize or hurt someone's feelings. So this is how I've related anger, a term of psychology, to behavior. To observable behavior, also not the observable behavior that can be easily observed, that can easily seen. So all these 3 points can be easily seen. So if anyone is shouting at anyone, you can easily recognize it, you can easily see it. If anyone is beating someone, you can easily see it with your naked eyes. If anyone is criticizing or hurting someone's feeling, you might not know it to some extent, but if it goes on a little further, you will definitely know about that the person is trying to criticize him or trying to hurt his feelings on purpose. So obviously in satirical situations you might not know it. But moving on, when we define a concept operationally, we define it in terms of measurable and observable operations. For example, the concepts of length, height in physics, and concepts like intelligence, motivation, personality in psychology are defined in terms of observable operations. So observable operation means nothing but the working of something. So like we are doing something like running is an operation. Exercising is an operation to actually do something. That's what an operation is, nothing different than it. So intelligence, motivation, personality can be defined in terms of observable operations. So the things that we do using intelligence is an operation. So operation of intelligence or an intelligent operation is nothing like, let me give you an idea. So to study, solve mathematical equations. So these are intelligence operations, or these are operations of intelligence. Operation means you are actually, when you are studying, you are actually picking up a book, reading the material written on the book. So that is a kind of operation. When you are solving mathematical equations, that is an operation. And these are related to intelligence because you are using your intelligence to do these things. So this is observable operation. Terms of which can be performed to measure them. So these operations can be done and they can be used to measure someone's intelligence. Similarly, some other operations can be done to measure someone's motivation or someone's personality. Like in interviews, they measure your personality. However, psychology cannot measure many behaviors or feelings cannot obviously be measured by psychology, such as bravery, friendship, love, beauty, etc. As these cannot be defined operationally, obviously, if you are kissing someone, if you are making out with someone, you are loving them. But what's in your heart, no one knows. Whether you are just lusting for the person or you actually love them, it's very hard to know this. Similarly, the same goes for friendship and bravery. The above characteristics are common to all sciences, including psychology. However, psychology is a different type of science, behavioral science. It's a behavioral science. In physics or chemistry, researchers investigate processes and events which remain stable and constant. To a large extent, this makes it possible to measure and predict with a reasonable degree of accuracy, but it is not the case with human behavior, which is highly complex, not easily controllable, and appears to be much more unpredictable than the reactions of physical and chemical substances. So this is what it's saying, that that physics and chemistry and biology mostly deals with phenomena or things that are mostly stable, to a large extent stable and constant. But psychology deals with human behavior that is constantly on the go, constantly changing, constantly different from what it was a second ago, a moment ago. Whereas other sciences investigate things around man, the psychology studies man himself. The methods used in psychological research include observation, interviews, psychological testing, laboratory experimentation, and statistical analysis. Thus, psychology is categorized under the youngest group of scientific inquiry, the social or behavioral sciences, which also includes subjects like anthropology, economics, education, geography, history, linguistics, sociology, etc. The first group of sciences are the physical sciences, which include subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, etc. Physics, chemistry, etc. Next is the biological or life sciences that include subjects like biology, botany, zoology. The application of knowledge to practical programs is an art. It is the skill or knack for doing things which is acquired by study, practice, and special experience. Since principles and laws of psychology are applied to solve human problems in a number of situations, families, schools, organization, environment, as well as treating behavior disorders and emotional problems. Therefore, it is a behavioral science.